Revealed, how a billionaire discovers his Maid's incredible hidden bond with his son, a life-changing friendship. In the sprawling estate of billionaire Thomas Hughes, amidst the glimmer of chandeliers and the hush of luxury, a storm brews. On the surface, everything glistens. But behind closed doors, the Hughes family teeters on the brink. Thomas, a gruff man of 45, stares into the mirror, his reflection steeped in disappointment and unyielding expectations. His teenage son, Jake, rebelled against the meticulously curated life he envisioned for them, one of elite privileges and polished perfection. The tension within those ornate walls felt like prickling needles, setting off a quiet war of wills. Maria, the dedicated maid who had worked for the Hughes family for more than a decade, swept in during those charged moments. Her brown hands scrubbed the marble floors while her heart carried the weight of her own dreams. She had come to America chasing the dream of opportunity, but the balance of her existence was a hazy line between dignity and struggle. As she moments gazed at Jake's frustrated youthful face, she could recognize the confusion echoing through her own son, Carlos. In those mornings when the light streamed through the vast windows, Maria would catch glimpses of her son, seated at the kitchen table, earphones buried deep as he studied through the chaos of dishes and preparations. Carlos worked 2 jobs to support their small family, dreaming of college but feeling the heavy grip of economic challenges. Maybe it was fate that brought him to Jake, during a community event meant to unite the social rungs within their affluent neighborhood. The first time they met changed everything. Jake was restless, seeking excitement beyond the gilded cage that his father built. Carlos, burdened yet bright-eyed, shared stories of his dreams as they lingered near the basketball court. An unorthodox friendship blossomed, their conversations filled with the weighty recognition of privilege and the pursuit of aspirations. The deeper their bond grew, the more Jake grappled with the stark realization of his apathy towards the struggles of others. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that is happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As summer bloomed into a vibrant tapestry, Jake's defiance spurred a firestorm in his father. Thomas confronted Jake, questioning the value of a friendship he deemed inappropriate. The opulent chandeliers felt like chains in that moment, the weight of expectation palpable. A confrontation teetered on the edge, forcing Thomas to reflect on how far removed he had become from vulnerability and connection. But there was a twist he never anticipated. With each confrontation, revelations unraveled. He discovered Maria's ties to his own mother. She, a presence of insight and sacrifice, had cared for his family during the hardest years. As he learned of her relentless heart, the boundaries of privilege and pride dimmed in the face of authentic strength and familial love. As the annual charity event approached, intended to bridge bonds but fraught with the risk of conflict, both men faced hard truths. Thomas could either dig deeper into the facade of legacy, keeping those worlds apart, or embrace the raw, unpredictable beauty found in connection. With uncertainty hanging heavy in the air, would love break through the rigid walls of expectations? Or would the chasms of class remain uncrossed, leaving them forever divided? Under the soft glow of twilight, the Hughes estate buzzed with preparations for the annual charity gala. It was supposed to be a night of unity and hope, framed within the grand walls of Thomas Hughes's home. Yet, for Thomas, it was a ticking time bomb. The truth simmered beneath the surface, and there was no escaping the weight of his own realizations. He watched the staff scurrying about, their faces a blend of focus and unspoken wariness. Maria stood by the side, overseeing the arrangements with a quiet grace, yet her heart raced. What if her past came up in conversation tonight? In the back of her mind, she worried about her connection to Thomas's mother being discovered, the threads woven tightly together through shared histories plagued by sacrifice. Jake, on the other hand, felt a mix of excitement and anxiety as he donned his tuxedo. This was his chance to step into his father's world, but part of him still ached for the authenticity he found in his friendship with Carlos. They shared a bond built not just on laughter but on an understanding that cut deeper than money or status ever could. As he looked in the mirror, he couldn't help but contemplate how to pull that friendship into a space that felt as suffocating as the tailored suit he wore. As guests began to arrive, the mansion erupted with laughter and clinking glasses. The air was thick with a sense of purpose. But in the corners, the murmurs of discomfort lingered. Jake spotted Carlos from afar, dressed more simply than the others, standing at the edge with a hesitant smile. In that moment, Jake felt a churning in his gut, a realization that the worlds they came from would clash like two forces in the night. "Hey, Jake!" Carlos called out, his voice breaking through the wall of decorum. Jake's heart lifted at the familiar sound, drowned out only by the muffled tones of the elite discussing wealth and influence. "Carlos!" Jake waved him over, ignoring the probing glances from his father. The atmosphere shifted slightly, holding an unspoken tension, as if everyone knew this moment was bigger than mere introductions. As Carlos joined him, Jake noticed something different. His friend's eyes glimmered with a mixture of resolve and worry. "I'm not sure about this place," Carlos admitted, shifting his weight nervously. "But I came because," he hesitated. "I came because I wanted to see how you live." Jake glanced toward his father, who loomed nearby, his gaze darting toward them, a storm brewing behind clenched jaws. "Don't worry. Just be yourself," Jake whispered. But deep down, he felt the pressure of expectations weighing down on him. The night progressed in a blur of toasts and speeches about philanthropy and kindness, yet Jake's thoughts were miles away. Every time he caught his father's eye, it was a reminder of everything that stood between them. Amidst the crowd, Maria watched from a distance, heart pounding. She couldn't shake the feeling that tonight could unravel everything: the hidden connections, the unshared stories, the sacrifices made. Could this night bring about a shift in understanding, or would it deepen the divide? As Jake shared more with Carlos, words filled with hope and dreams, a palpable tension slipped through the room like a whisper. Suddenly, Thomas approached, face taut and unreadable. "What are you doing?" he demanded, his voice heavy with authority. The air grew thick as Jake's heart raced. The weight of worlds collided in that moment. Would his father's need for control ruin the budding friendship he cherished? Would he stand his ground for the sake of connection? "What I've found, what I see is worth fighting for," Jake declared, surprising even himself. As silence enveloped the room, all eyes turned to the young man who dared to challenge his father. Would this moment of defiance create a rift that would shatter their family? Or was it the first step toward understanding? Through the chaos of expectation, one question hung in the air: could love and acceptance triumph over pride? The room fell silent, the impending storm barely contained. Jake's heart thudded in his chest as he held his father's gaze. The walls of the grand hall seemed to close in on him, each gold-framed portrait and crystal chandelier a reminder of the legacy he was trying to break away from. Thomas's eyes narrowed, reading the intensity in Jake's voice. He could feel the whispers of the guests dance around them, a mix of curiosity and judgment. "You don't understand what you're getting into," Thomas hissed, low enough to keep the conversation private yet heavy with the weight of authority. "This is not just a friendship. It's a reflection of our values." Tension crackled like static in the air. Maria's heart sank as she observed from the sidelines. She could hardly breathe, caught between her desire for the truth to finally come to light and the fear that it would destroy everything. Perhaps they were not ready for the complexities that tonight might reveal. But Jake pushed back against the tide of his father's expectations. "It's more than that, Dad. It's about who I want to be. Carlos is my friend. He doesn't come with conditions or demands. That's real. Can't you see that?" Before Thomas could respond, Carlos stepped forward. The bravery in his own heart surged through his voice, bold and unwavering. "I appreciate the invitation, Mr. Hughes, but Jake's right. We're friends first and foremost. I didn't want to come here for your approval or to satisfy some social norm. The air shifted. The initial discomfort began to spark something different, curiosity from guests who hadn't hoped to see a moment of genuine human connection. As murmurings rose and fell among the crowd, Jake felt the knot in his stomach loosen just a fraction. Look, I know I might not fit in here, Carlos continued, but I came because Jake matters to me. If that threatens you, then maybe you should question why. The crowd held its breath. Jake found himself staring at his father, waiting for a reaction. Would Thomas acknowledge the truth, or would he dismiss it as childish rebellion? What do you think this will accomplish, Jake? Thomas responded, his voice barely hiding the frustration. This isn't a schoolyard. This is the real world, and decisions have consequences. We're standing here, aren't we? Jake's words came out strong, yet vulnerable. Maybe we need to find out what those consequences truly are. I refuse to let fear dictate my life. An almost alien silence blanketed the room, punctuated only by the soft clinking of glasses being set down. It was not just a stand against a father, it was a stand against a system that had defined his entire upbringing. Then, as if on cue, Maria felt a surge of empowerment. She stepped forward, unwilling to remain dormant on the sidelines any longer. And sometimes it's those of us standing in the shadows that hold the most power. What is hidden can't stay buried forever. Her voice quivered, but there was a fierceness brewing within her that surprised even herself. Thomas's face paled slightly, as if the walls of privilege he had built were beginning to crack. You don't know what you're saying, Maria, he said, defensive yet with a hint of uncertainty. Oh, but I do, she shot back, each word loaded with years of shared history. The truth can hurt, yes, but it also heals. Sometimes, it's the only way to grow. Jake glanced between Maria and his father, sensing a shifting tide. He had dared to dream of a world where division could transform into understanding, and right now, it felt tantalizingly within reach. Yet, just as hope began to flicker brighter, the doors swung open in dramatic fashion, revealing a figure silhouetted against the glow of the outside. The crowd turned, their expressions a mixture of shock and curiosity. Thomas, we need to talk, the new arrival demanded, stepping forward with purpose. As uncertainty rode high in the room, Jake's heart raced again. Who was this person? And how would they impact the fragile moment unfolding before them? Would the truth finally surface, or would it all come crashing down once again? The figure stepped into the hall, the glow from outside framing them in a dramatic, almost theatrical light. Jake squinted, trying to get a clear look. As the stranger emerged, a familiar face materialized. It was Sarah, the housekeeper's daughter, with her fierce eyes locked onto Thomas. Sarah? Thomas's voice wavered, a mixture of surprise and annoyance. What are you doing here? I'm here for the same reason I've always been here, she replied, her tone steady. To protect those who can't protect themselves. You can't just dismiss this, Thomas. You can't just pretend everything's fine while people like Jake suffer under your expectations. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Whispers circled like wildfire, and Jake's mind raced. Had Sarah known all those years? Had she seen the battles he fought in silence, the strains of expectations wrapping tighter around him? She pressed on, undeterred. This isn't just about you, Mr. Hughes. It's about a whole community that's been overlooked and devalued. You turned your back on the very people you rely on to maintain your image. Her voice grew sharper. Jake deserves more than this manufactured world. He deserves love, authenticity. Let him decide who he wants to be. Jake felt something stir within him, something powerful. It wasn't just his anger, it was hope. For so long, he kept his head down, swallowed his words, and stayed within the lines drawn for him. But here was Sarah, unapologetically challenging the status quo, illuminating things he had only wished to voice. Let us not get carried away, Sarah, Thomas countered, his brows drawn low in a fierce frown. His tone was icy and condescending, yet Jake could see moments of doubt flickering in his father's eyes. Carried away. This is the reality of people's lives. Do you really think it's normal to live in a gilded cage? Her hands trembled, fists clenching as if grabbing hold of an unshakable truth. Your legacy, your reputation, relies on keeping people like Carlos and me out of sight. What happens when the truth comes crashing in? Jake felt a flicker of recognition in the room. The guests, who had once seemed like ghostly silhouettes flitting about the walls, were suddenly listening. He could see their expressions shifting, first from one of shock, then to something resembling understanding. Sarah, you were supposed to stay away from this, Thomas murmured, desperation creeping into his words. You're jeopardizing everything, quite the opposite. Sarah's voice softened, a raw ache shimmering in her words. What you're building is already crumbling. The cracks show themselves when people can't breathe under your rule. A charged silence filled the room again, the weight of her words heavy and omnipresent. Jake glanced around, gauging the reactions. There was something palpable in the atmosphere, something electric urging him to add his voice to the chorus. He stepped forward, feeling the warmth of support from Maria beside him, the strength in Carlos's presence beside him. Sarah's right, Jake declared, his voice like steel against the thin air. We can't pretend anymore. I want to let fear dictate my life. I'm ready to embrace the truth, whatever that means. The crowd shifted, pushing in as if compelled by an invisible current. Jake's heart raced with the knowledge that this was a pivotal moment, one that had the power to tear down walls and break the cycle of secrecy. And I'm not alone, Jake added, searching for Carlos, Maria, and even Sarah's eager gaze. We need to do this together. We need to reclaim our narrative. His father glared, disbelief shadowing his face. You're all making a mistake, or maybe it's the first step to making things right, Carlos interrupted, holding Thomas's gaze with unyielding determination. The tension in the room swelled, charged with possibility. But just as hope began to ascend, a shattering crash erupted from the open doors. Everyone whirled, the moment of truth evolving into chaos. What now? Would the force outside disrupt their path to liberation, or would it kindle an even greater fire? The loud crash reverberated through the hall, disturbing the tense atmosphere that had settled in the room. Guests gasped and shuffled back, eyes darting towards the door, which now swung wildly on its hinges. A gust of wind rushed in, carrying with it the darkening clouds from an impending storm. Shadows danced on the walls, lending an otherworldly feel to the scene. Jake could feel his heart racing, the uncertainty hanging thick in the air. What had happened? Suddenly, a figure burst through the doorway. It was Carlos, his face flushed with urgency. Jake! You've got to see this! He shouted, breathless and wild-eyed. What is it? Jake felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Carlos glanced quickly at Thomas, his expression shifting to one of defiance. It's about the truth. Come on. Before Jake could process what was happening, Carlos grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the entrance. The moment felt surreal. He cast a backward glance. Sarah, standing firm and fierce, nodded at him, giving him a silent encouragement. Jake felt as if he was harnessing a newfound strength. He could no longer go back. Wait! Maria called, rushing after them. I'm coming too. She joined their hurried pace, and they stepped outside into the swirling winds. The storm had arrived, heavy raindrops falling in sporadic bursts. Yet, it was the sight before them that gripped Jake's attention. A group of people had gathered in a makeshift line, not just any group, but members of the community who had once been silenced. They looked weary but determined, faces illuminated by the flashes of lightning striking the sky above. What are they doing here? Jake whispered, a mix of fear and confusion gnawing at him. Carlos stepped forward, a fierce protector in the face of stormy clouds. They're here to stand with you, Jake. To support you against what your father represents. As he took in the sea of faces, Jake felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. There were the familiar ones, neighbors, workers, those he'd often seen outside his window but hardly acknowledged. The cacophony of voices began to swell, chanting his name. It felt surreal, like a heartbeat echoing deeper within him. "Stop!" Thomas's voice thundered from behind them, piercing through the sound of the rain. He stalked forward, his anger palpable, yet there was something else in his eyes. Was it fear? "Leave them alone. They don't get to conjure some fairy tale out in the rain." Thomas spat. But Jake stood rooted, the noise of the crowd now a comforting embrace. "No!" he shouted back, his voice raw and determined. "You've held us back for too long. I won't be your puppet anymore." Everyone turned to him, acceptance blended with admiration radiated from the crowd. Jake felt a rush of clarity as if he had just removed a lifetime of weights from his shoulders. But just as the moment approached its crescendo, the sound of sirens pierced through the storm, a growing wail that cut through the air like a knife. The police? What were they doing here? "They're coming for us now," Carlos said, dread seeping into his voice. "We need to pull together like we discussed." "Now?" Jake asked, a flicker of fear igniting within him. "Now," Maria confirmed, stepping closer, her face a mask of defiance. "But we can't let them break us. This is our chance." As the police cars skidded to a stop, blue lights flashing, Jake's heart pounded. The gravity of the moment pressed down like the coming storm. Was this truly the end, or perhaps the beginning of something monumental? He turned to face the crowd again, resolute. "Let us stand together. We rise as one." Thunder rumbled in response, not just from the sky but from the very spirit of the gathered crowd. Jake locked eyes with Sarah. In that moment of shared determination, they both understood. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was a collective fight for freedom and authenticity. Yet just as hope flickered in myriad forms, a figure stepped out of one of the police cars. It was someone Jake never expected to see, a face from his past, one that could turn everything upside down. As anticipation hung in the air, he wondered what revelations this person would bring. Could this unfamiliar ally spark another twist in what had become a hurricane of truths? The storm was just beginning to rage. Jake's breath caught as a tall figure emerged from the police car. The lights casting erratic shadows across the wet pavement revealed a familiar face he thought he'd never see again: Mitchell, his childhood friend, and the one person he never thought would side with his father. "Mitchell?" Jake's voice trembled, a mix of shock and disbelief clouding his mind. Memories flooded back, their laughter, the games they played in the summer sun, the secrets whispered under the stars. "Jake, it's been a long time," Mitchell replied, his expression a mix of regret and determination. The way he looked at Jake now, so different from their childhood, sent shivers down Jake's spine. He was no longer that carefree boy. Mitchell wore the weight of the world in his eyes, as if he had seen things Jake couldn't even imagine. "What are you doing here?" Jake managed to ask, anger bubbling beneath the surface. "Are you with them?" "With my father?" "No." Mitchell raised his hands in surrender, stepping forward as the crowd murmured, uncertainty gripping them tightly. "I'm here for you. I want to help." "Help?" Thomas scoffed, crossing his arms in suspicion. "Help how?" "By bringing more trouble. Listen." Mitchell raised his voice above the drumming rain. "I know things. Things that could change everything for you and for all of them." He gestured toward the group still gathered in defiance against the police presence. "But I need you to trust me." The crowd seemed to hang on his words, their faces a mix of doubt and intrigue. Jake felt the weight of their expectation crush him. He thought of all the dreams he had clung to, the desire for authenticity, and wondered if trusting Mitchell was a step toward realizing those dreams or taking a plunge into darkness. "Why should I?" Jake fought to maintain composure, unsure of what had brought his friend back into his life. "You disappeared when I needed you most. Now you come back and what? Expect us to believe you have our best interests at heart?" Mitchell's eyes flared with emotion, as anger mingled with sorrow. I didn't have a choice before, but I do now. I've seen the damage your father has caused. He's not what you think he is, and neither am I. Let me explain. Please. As Jake looked over his shoulder at Carlos and Maria, he saw their anxious faces. They had fought so hard to gain this moment of unity, and tension thickened the air. The police were forming a line, and in that instant, it felt like the walls were closing in. Fine, Jake spat out, turning back to face Mitchell. You have one chance. Tell us everything. Mitchell nodded, relief washing over him, but it was short-lived as their surroundings erupted in chaos. The police were stepping forward as if preparing to break the line and scatter the crowd. The urgency in the moment heightened Jake's senses. He leaned closer to Mitchell, aware that time was not on their side. Now, what do you know? Jake urged, his voice barely above the growing tension. Before Mitchell could answer, the sound of a megaphone sliced through the air, demanding obedience. Disperse immediately. You are in violation of city regulations. Heart racing, Jake glanced at the people around him. This had become more than just a confrontation. It was a crossroads, a moment to reshape their destinies. But how much could he gamble on Mitchell's words? As thunder cracked overhead, Jake felt the very ground shift beneath his feet. This confrontation was about more than just his father's power, it was about healing old wounds and perhaps drawing the line between right and wrong. With urgency coursing through him, he shouted, "We will not back down. We are uniting against this tyranny." He turned back to Mitchell, demanding clarity through the storm. Tell us the truth. We need to know what we're fighting against. As the crowd surged forward, hearts beating as one, Jake wasn't sure who he could trust anymore. And as Mitchell began to speak, a chilling realization settled in his gut: the truth might shake their foundations more than the storm ever could. What awaited them could either bind them closer or tear them apart. What secrets lay waiting, ready to be unveiled? Would Jake be prepared for the truth, no matter how devastating? The air crackled with tension, and the thunder above seemed to underscore every word. Jake leaned in closer, struggling to hear Mitchell over the chaos unfolding around them. He could see the concern etched on his friends' faces, Carlos clenching his fists at his sides and Maria glancing nervously at the officers advancing toward them. Jake, Mitchell said urgently, his voice low and intense, I know things about your father. Terrible things, things he has done to get where he is now. You need to understand that he is not just a businessman. He is involved in things that could hurt you and everyone you care about. What do you mean? Jake's heart raced, the implications beginning to sink in. What could he possibly be involved in that is so dangerous? Mitchell took a deep breath, his gaze steady. He has been pushing people out of their homes, making deals with corrupt officials. Your father has a whole network. It goes deeper than just business. It's about control. He wants to silence anyone who opposes him. That is why he is here tonight. Jake felt the weight of the truth crashing over him like a wave. All the times he had felt powerless against his father's influence swirled in his mind. Why now? Why are you telling me this? Because I want to help you fight back, Mitchell said heavily. I know what you've been going through. I know how hard you fought for your community. But you can't do this alone. We need to expose him for who he really is. Behind them, the police moved closer. The chanting crowd began to murmur as confusion spread. Jake could feel the urgency in the air prickling his skin. What do you want me to do? He asked, his voice trembling with the mix of fear and resolve. First, we have to hold our ground. Let them know we're not backing down, Mitchell urged. Then, I need you to trust me when I say there's a way to gather evidence against him. I have contacts, people who can help us. Jake hesitated. The thought of turning everything he knew upside down scared him, but the fire in his heart against his father's tyranny burned brighter. If it means protecting this community and the people I love, then I'm in. Before Mitchell could respond, a loud crash echoed through the night as an officer shoved their way to the front lines. "You will disband immediately. This is your last warning." Clouds rumbled over them, reflecting Jake's inner turmoil. He turned back to the crowd, feeling the weight of all their eyes on him. "We fight for our homes. We fight for each other." The energy charged through the group like a shockwave. Murmurs of agreement surged among the crowd, and Jake felt a wave of unity wash over him. They were in this together, and that realization sparked a flame in his chest. "Let us show them we're not afraid," Carlos shouted, raising a fist high into the air. The crowd responded with a collective roar, defiance written across every face. "But what about the consequences?" A woman shouted from the back, her voice trembling but resolute. "What if they come after us?" The fear was palpable, but Jake pressed on. "Then we face them together. We take this fight to the end." But inside, doubt gnawed at him. Could they really stand against the machine his father had built? And what if Mitchell was right about the extent of his father's power? Just then, a piercing scream cut through the air, emanating from the police line. An officer had stumbled back, hands raised, shouting for backup. That scream mixed with the storm overhead sent a ripple of panic through the crowd. "What is happening?" Jake yelled, trying to see what was going on, but two officers suddenly broke through the barricade, heads turned to him. Their faces were set, expressions unreadable. At that moment, Jake realized the fight was no longer just about protest, it was about survival. Shadows loomed closer, and he felt the ground shift beneath him once more. The truth Mitchell wanted to reveal hung like a storm cloud, heavy and ready to unleash chaos. As the officers advanced, Jake knew one thing: they were on the brink of a battle bigger than any of them could have imagined. What would happen next could change everything. Was Mitchell right? How far were they willing to go to uncover the truth, and what would they lose in the process? Fear coursed through Jake like ice water, chilling him to the bone. The officers moved closer, their authority palpable, and the crowd around him tensed. Moments stretched agonizingly, and he felt everyone's eyes on him, waiting for direction, waiting for courage. "Stay calm," he shouted, though his own heart thudded wildly against his ribcage. "We can handle this. Nobody's backing down." The officers advanced further, shifting with purpose. As they closed in, Maria stepped in front of Jake, her body poised and defiant. "You can't intimidate us. We have rights." She looked fierce, the rain glistening on her skin like armor. "Yeah." Carlos joined in, raising his voice, "We're not going anywhere." The crowd echoed their fervor, solidifying their presence against the looming threat. But Jake saw something that shattered that unity, a flash of fear in Mitchell's eyes, the weight of knowledge mixed with dread. What did he know that could turn this moment from a fight for their rights into something far worse? Suddenly, the scream echoed again. It reverberated through the anxious crowd like a clarion call. This time, it wasn't just fear, it was panic. An officer had tripped over something on the ground, and in the ensuing chaos, they dropped their baton, which rolled dramatically away from them. That one misplaced action ignited a surge within Jake. "This is our chance," he shouted. "Get ready." As the crowd shifted and moved with a rush of adrenaline, Jake's mind raced. This confrontation was spiraling, but what if this was their moment to take a stand? But where would that stand lead them? The voice of doubt in his chest whispered warnings, a reminder of the strength and ruthlessness of his father. "Jake, don't!" Mitchell shouted, grabbing his arm to stop him. "It's too risky. We haven't prepared for what comes next." Jake pulled away, frustration bubbling to the surface. "And if we don't act now, what's the point? We'll just be another group pushed around by the likes of my father." He was breathing heavily, the weight of leadership crashing down on him. The officers regrouped, their eyes scanning the crowd as they realized the tension shifting. "You will disperse now." One stepped forward, command clear in his voice. The sound of thunder cracked overhead, adding a sense of urgency. "Fight back!" A voice yelled, and the crowd responded with roar, a chorus of voices united by fear and resolve. Jake turned and saw the faces of his friends, determined yet terrified. They were ready to follow him into the unknown. With one final glimpse of hesitation, Jake stepped forward. "We have to protect our homes. We won't let them take our voices. There's strength in numbers." The solidarity among the gathered people swelled, a wave desperate for expression. Hand in hand, they united before the advancing officers, a human barricade standing firm against the storm both literally and figuratively brewing around them. But in the back of his mind, a question lingered: would this act of bravery ignite change, or would it lead to pain and suffering they weren't prepared to endure? Then, unexpectedly, someone pushed through the crowd towards him. It was an older woman, her face weathered but bright with a determined light. "Jake! I have something you need to see. This fight. It's deeper than you think." Jake's breath caught. Suddenly, the stakes rose even higher. He looked from the woman to his friends, caught between the battle ahead and the mysteries waiting to unfold. What did she mean? What more could he possibly uncover that would change everything? Jake's heart raced as he processed the older woman's words. The urgency in her voice pulled him closer, drowning out the chaos surrounding them. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely above the noise of shuffling feet and rising shouts from his friends. The woman, her brow furrowed with determination, reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small, tattered photograph. She held it up high so Jake could see. The image was faded, but he could make out a gathering of people, their faces radiant, standing together as a family. "This picture, it's from when your father was starting his empire. These aren't just random strangers, they're the ones who supported him, who believed in his dream. And your connection to them? It runs deeper than you might think." His mind raced, thoughts flowing uncontrollably. How could his father's history affect him now? Jake's gaze shifted from the photograph to the crowd, his friends still standing defiant but worried. "What does this have to do with us? We need to focus on what is happening right now, not the past. Don't you see?" she insisted, her voice cutting through his anxiety. "The people in that photo? They lost everything when your father turned his back on them. They thought they were part of something bigger only to be discarded when he didn't need them anymore." Jake took a step back, overwhelmed. The idea that his father had harmed people made his chest tighten. "My father," he began, but the words got stuck in his throat. He had always seen him as an unstoppable force in the community. Confident. Fierce. But now, he felt a crack forming in that image. Had he really betrayed those who once supported him? "Your fight isn't just about your rights, Jake. It's about setting things right. You have a chance to change the narrative." The woman's voice was firm, carrying the weight of hope. Around them, the crowd shifted nervously as tension crept back in. The officers were regrouping, their expressions hardened, and the rhythm of their commands sliced through the air. "This is your moment," she urged, her eyes locked on his. "Don't let fear paralyze you. What you do next defines who you are." The weight of her words crashed over him like the rain drenching his shirt. It stirred a flicker of something deep within, a mix of anger, responsibility, and that ever-looming awareness of legacy. Jake felt his friends' eyes on him, their faith hanging on his decision. The older woman continued to hold the photograph up, a bold reminder of all that lay at stake. With a deep breath, he turned back to the gathering of his people. "This isn't just about standing our ground today. This is about a future we can shape together." He felt the adrenaline surge again, a tangible electricity in the air. "We're not backing down now." The crowd erupted into chants, their voices melding into one resilient force. The officers hesitated for a moment, confusion spreading across their expressions. In that split second, it felt like possibility hung just above them, trepidation in the air like the scent of impending rain. But deep inside, doubt lingered. What if this wasn't enough? Or worse, what if by confronting his father, Jake opened a door that should be stayed closed? Jake! Mitchell's voice broke through, fear reflected in his eyes. What if your father finds out about this? He'll do whatever it takes to maintain his power. Jake's breath quickened again, and suddenly all the weight he carried felt heavier. It wasn't just a fight against the officers anymore, it was a fight against looming shadows of his past, against his own blood. As the rain continued to pour down, one thought circled in his mind: could he really reshape their destiny, or would the truth about who he was meant to be drown them all? Just then, the woman stepped closer, her expression fierce, stirring a flicker of hope. You're not alone, Jake. Use what you uncover to ignite change. Standing at the precipice of truth and fear, Jake knew the next step could unravel everything he believed. Would he choose his father's path or embrace the unknown? A distant siren wailed, louder now, as fear gripped the crowd once more. His heart raced. Choices loomed ahead, darker than the storm clouds surrounding them. What awaited him in that revelation? Would he step into the legacy forged by others or create a new one of his own? The storm raged on, but within Jake, a definitive shift ignited. The woman's words resonated in his core, solid and unwavering. It was now or never. He glanced at the chaotic scene around him, the frightened faces of his friends and the growing line of law enforcement ready to assert dominance. Each heartbeat pulsed with the weight of potential choice. With newfound resolve, he stepped closer to the older woman. What's the next step? He demanded, voice steady against the clamoring storm. She smiled faintly, as if his determination sparked something deeper within her. Let the truth guide you, she replied. Create a safe space, bring your friends and your community together. Together, you have the power to raise your voices and expose the shadows of what your father has built. Across the crowd, energy buzzed, a mix of anticipation and trepidation. They needed action, not just courage. Listen. Jake bellowed, adrenaline surging through him. The crowd hushed, all eyes converging on him. This fight is ours. We're not just here to resist, we're here to reclaim what was taken from us. We deserve a seat at the table, and we deserve the truth. His words echoed, amplifying the hope in the air. Carlos stepped forward, brimming with enthusiasm, his voice ringing clear. We have to take back our voices. We'll share our stories, make our experiences known. We are more than just a community, we are family. The chant "family" rose among the crowd, igniting unity. Jake felt strengthened by their shared vigor, it felt electric. From the edge of the mob, a few officers began to inch forward, intentions unclear but evident in their brigade-like formation. The woman lifted the photograph again and bellowed, "These faces represent the lives your father has disrupted. We will not be silenced." Fueled by courage, Jake turned toward the women and men who had supported him all his life, a community full of tales of hope mixed with grief. Let us organize. Let us go door to door. We need to gather testimonies, evidence of the damage inflicted on us, of the homes lost, he urged passionately. We'll create a network so strong that he cannot deny the truth any longer. The crowd responded with an uproar of agreement. They were ready, they could feel it in their bones. In that tense moment, the officers stopped. They worried, this wasn't just another protest. They were witnessing a revolution of heart, years of silence now bursting forth in a united wave. Then, from across the line, Thomas emerged. His expression mirrored disbelief mixed with frustration, a patriarch at war with everything he had built. "Jake!" he shouted, veins straining against the pressure of this moment. "This is not how you handle this. Not here, not in front of everyone." "Why not, Dad?" Jake yelled back, fire dancing in his chest. "Have you forgotten the people who sacrificed for your success? We're not your possessions." Thomas opened his mouth as if to respond, but something caught in his throat, the silence stretching awkwardly. For the first time, Jake saw him falter, just for a heartbeat. People made mistakes. That doesn't determine who I am. You can't erase our identity, our fight, Jake continued, hope igniting in hearts long lost. What shame you bring. Thomas snarled, but he didn't move forward as he had before. His posture softened, unsure and unsteady. Then, Mitchell stepped beside Jake, driven by sincerity. This isn't just about him or you, Mr. Hughes. This is about righting wrongs. People deserve to know the truth of your actions. They deserve to reclaim their dignity. In the raw confrontation, Jake gained clarity. This was an awakening, not just for him but for his father too. Each challenge could begin to shatter their oppressive history. Jake took a step forward, vulnerability heavy in his chest as he softened his voice. It's not too late. We can fix this together. His father's eyes shimmered with something undefinable. Was it regret? Could there be room for reconciliation amidst the chaos? You don't know what you're asking. Thomas hesitated, glancing at the police arriving, rigid. Against the tide of passion flowing through his son and the community behind him. You're putting everything at risk. Then let us face that risk. Jake's voice remained steady, a rock amidst disarray. We can build a legacy together, one steeped in love and truth. Or we can choose the path of deception, sacrificing lives for power. Heavy silence echoed in the charged air as the words sank in. Finally, Thomas looked away, staring at the crowd encircling Jake. Then he turned back to his son with a semblance of defeat, and yet possibility. What do I do? He whispered, the roar of thunder now becoming a distant echo around them. Start by apologizing, Jake urged gently. Connect with the community. Share your vision for change. As the rain poured steadily, a glimmer of hope hung between father and son, a tentative bridge spanning a deep chasm forged in silence. All right, Thomas mumbled, a sigh escaping his lips. I'll come forward. Jake felt the weight lift a little. Love could breach the gap if it were allowed to breathe. The crowd parted, a reaction buzzing through the air as Thomas stepped closer, uncertainty draping over him like a fragile veil. I know I've hurt many of you. I have failed in more ways than I care to admit, he began, eyes roving over faces filled with doubt and open hearts. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Jake stood by, a silent pillar of strength, knowing this was a chance for both healing and transformation. With every word spoken, hope surged stronger, wrapping around them all. Perhaps this moment would spark the change necessary to dissolve the barriers between even the deepest divides. As Thomas held out his hand, ready to embrace the future, a collective intake of breath washed over the crowd. Would they accept him? The air vibrated with possibility as they waited, hearts beating in sync to the rhythm of a new beginning. Tear down those walls, and we'll build something beautiful. Those words tethered them as they moved forward together, ready to embrace whatever awaited them, united in strength, against the storm of the unknown. This moment, this decision, was just the start. Now was the time to rise. And with that thought, an overwhelming urgency surged within him. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm and comment your reactions below. You are important to us, let your voice be heard.